Hi. Thanks everyone for your patience. We're just working out a few of the technical issues there. My name's Rachel O'Rourke, for those of you I haven't met. So I'm here today at Holder for a special question and answer session with Rinpoche. Just before we get into that, I just thought I'd give you a quick update. So obviously, if you've been receiving lots of emails recently from me and others about the temple, the Sakya Temple of Peace, so we've been doing a fundraising drive which has gone really well. So on the fundraiser platform, we put it out to raise $500,000 by the end of this month. So we've just got 1 week left to go. So if you'd like to donate, we're still receiving donations and we'd love to meet that target. So we've raised over 211,000, I think, at the moment, which has been a great effort from the community coming together. And we thank you all for your support, because this is such an important project to build a Tibetan Buddhist temple here in Canberra. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so it's great. I know many of you have been part of that, rolling mantras and helping out on the temple site, as well as donating and supporting the society. So yeah, we ask that you continue to support and donate where you can. So thank you for that. So we have received a couple of questions for this Q&A sessions to Rinpoche. If you do have any other questions, for the people that are here in person, if you do want to write, Anthony, maybe I'll get you to just pass around. If you want to write a question on a piece of paper, you can pass it up to me and I'll ask Rinpoche. Or if you're on Zoom or Facebook, feel free to pop it in the chat if you have any particular questions. But in the meantime, we might start with the ones that we have received. So Rinpoche, is that a good time to start? So we have a question from the person says, I'm facing parental alienation. My son is blaming me for my divorce and doesn't want to see me. My ex-husband is feeding misinformation to my kids. How do I stand up for myself without my kids thinking I'm arguing? I feel so much suffering. I need help.
Thank you, Kate, for your question. Of course, your suffering is one that many can relate to in very close family relationships, because all relationships, as all conditioned things, are subject to change. So when good, respectful, loving, and affectionate relationship doesn't stay the way it is, it often turns exactly opposite. Particularly, it's not just between two, but also to do with young ones. So this suffering of parental alienation or alienation from one's ex. It looks like parental alienation, but it really is alienation of two adult persons' relationship. And the children are caught in the middle. And one thinks the other one is feeding misinformation. And the other one doesn't think the other one's giving correct information, even if they are. So when the two key individuals, adults, are separating or divorcing, their own no separation or divorce happens amicably, except in some exceptional circumstances where both of the adult make some kind of mutual agreement to part peaceful way without making it too hard for themselves, let alone the children, let alone others. Quite a lot of grown-up parents are able to do that. But most parents, as self-centered as they are, they don't think of the future consequences to the children and the mutual alienation it will cause. Because of that, if not both, at least one of the two appears to be doing exactly that what you are experiencing. So I can only sympathize that. But here, the most Buddhist way to address this is the suffering that you have had in going through the separation and divorce, as well as on top of that alienation from the children, is inevitable. Because the joy of meeting and marrying the man in one's life or wife in one's life would have had quite a period of sweetness and romance and friendship and love and joy, to the extent of we don't mind parting from our family or parents. Maybe our parent felt child alienation because they're losing. Tibetan daughters have to pretend that they don't want to go as a bride. They have to cry for days when the parent, when she is being married off. Actually, we say, "Oh, here goes the bride's thing," you know. She actually doesn't want to show that she's quite happy to go and marry, but she have to pretend as she want to miss the parents. But maybe she's feeling both, you know. So we already have experienced some kind of, maybe our parents has experienced child alienation because we leave them when we meet somebody. And so now we after having spent so many years with having children and then you're separated, of course you are having the full circle. Now you are experiencing all meetings part, all birth ends in death, all buildings end in demolition, all acquisition ends in squandering. That any relationship that has its highs will have its lows. So therefore, one thing is that you should universalize this separation and divorce as inevitable, if not by this kind of thing, at least by death. We know many people whose husband died or whose wife died, and as a result of that, they haven't recovered. They have been stayed depressed because they miss the husband or the wife so much that they do not know how to cope. So separation by separation, divorce by death, or separation by divorce is a form of a death. Only thing is the person who died in your relationship as a husband or wife is still alive. Therefore, we cannot forgive him or her. But if it was by death, usually people tend to learn to at least cope by not being bitter to the man or woman, but at least they still do not cope the parting and loss they suffered. So your suffering is really more of a loss than of an alienation. If when you think of alienation, you think one did this to make me feel alienated. Then you seem to be blamed by children, and then we seem to feel like the husband is misfeeding information to the other. So the mutual blaming is what tit for tat, which actually exacerbates the very suffering. So we need to practice patience. Probably, if the decision to divorce was mutual, maybe not to your liking, but it wanted by a husband, probably that's maybe harder for your end to accept. But if it was also partly your own reason to be divorced, then that is the consequences. Now, question is, how do we make sure that children are not caught in the middle by not saying bad things about the other and not believing the other is saying bad things at all? Maybe it appears that way, but this kind of blaming does not add to solution, but to the problem. So therefore, there is a practice of patience that's necessary to see that as a kind of result of some kind of actions of one's own side or both, maybe, but usually it's always two together. There's no one right and one wrong entirely. So it's very important to think how much one's a husband or wife must be suffering to have lost you. Maybe he's doing this because he feels he's losing. He's lost you because maybe, say if you are the one who initiated the divorce and he really didn't want, he is suffering more loss than your sense of alienation from the children. So therefore it's important to universalize, mutualize that both husband and oneself are in suffering. Not one not suffering, the other is suffering. So it's very important to see this as look in the eyes of the photograph of your ex-husband. Look and say how much he must be suffering because of the things you decided or you did that may have affected his situation, to the extent of him having to misinform the children. What must have driven him to get to this far? Say if he's not thinking you're misinforming the children, but he must have some reason to fail. Why did you initiate the divorce? And therefore, often that's the case. His loss is probably even more. Now he's got only last thing left is try to hold on to the kids, try to make it look like try to alienate towards you, but maybe he's got only them to hold on to them. So therefore, his suffering is as much as yours, if not more. You should think like that if you can. Because when you are able to see your own suffering, you want to have others to show kindness and pity on you. But it's even better if you can show kindness and compassion to the suffering that your ex must be going through. And then you feel that you and him are in both in the same boat. Then it's you would do less blaming him. Why? Because he too is suffering. He doesn't know what he's doing if he's misinforming. He's only exacerbating the problem. So obviously he's ignorant. What he's doing isn't yielding any benefit to him, let alone you. And so therefore you need to see where he is. He must be like. Say if he's the one who is you're the one who's experiencing what he's going through by your doing, then what would be like? Maybe you could swap yourself in his role and oneself in his role. When you put in that, I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong, but how can you learn to not to sort of deepen the wound that appears to be a cause, and not thinking he's misinforming and alienating children, but what must be like to him, to be him, and now having to try to alienate children from you. What would it be beneficial for him to do that? No, obviously. He's also doing vindictively. So he's definitely making suffering worse than you having to be doing anything on top of whatever instigated the divorce. So therefore, it's important to what we call universalized. We think of ourselves being on the equals as others, rather than we being more defeated by others' wrongdoing, and we suffering additionally and erroneously. When we think like that, then your suffering seems to be far more greater than that other one has, or other one might even have bliss or some benefit. No, his ability to alienate you, if that's correct, is going to bite him even more on top of what caused his loss of you. So it's very important to universalize what we call meditating on the equality between oneself and others, rather than us being a bit of a victim of what he has done or he appeared to be doing. So also you need to look in the eyes of your children so that you are very thoughtful in saying, without thinking you're arguing with him. Yeah, it's important to be able to tell honestly that the divorce has been mainly caused by a lot of sufferings, and you need to show why you decided to agree with the divorce or maybe initiate a divorce. Kids may not think it's you who have agreed to the divorce. Divorce is never mutual at the beginning, but later on it is. So it's very important to tell the kids that divorce was mutual. Otherwise, if it wasn't mutual, then obviously you have a different story to tell. If it was mutual, kids need to know that by both suffering by being together, they try not to have that much suffering by separating and divorcing. And the kids usually say, as long as you're happy, Dad, I'm happy, they say that. And to the mom, they'll say the same thing. But one is less happy and blaming the other. Then, of course, that makes the children totally caught up in the middle, and they are being torn. They're being sort of pulled apart. And so your sense of being alienated from the children by his sort of assumed appearance of misinforming them may seem accurate to your reading, but that may not be so. And if any other second or third person's reading might go. So therefore you need to reassess your perception and see that that is not a projection of your own, kind of loneliness or fear of not being loved by your children. Children will love and love only if they know that you are not painting a same negative picture that you assume the other one is. If you're able to tell them, look, your dad is suffering a lot because I and we, if you initiated divorces, you've got to tell them, I initiated the divorce because it didn't suit me this way, that way, and I'm much happier by myself. But now losing your kids in this way, I never assumed this. So therefore, whatever you are hearing is obviously a shock to your dad's inability to accept the divorce. And so this will take time for him to realize that, to accept that and let go and no longer blame you. But if they're saying it to blame me, it's probably correct because I initiated it. It's good to tell the truth, the story, because they didn't realize you initiated. I'm not saying you did, by the way, because I don't know the full story. So it's very important to free one's mind, as well as to free kids' mind of the kind of perception they have that is painted by other person's picture. How do you correct that? But if you tell the whole story why your ex is suffering and to the extent of misinforming them, you need to let them know why he's suffering the loss of you. He probably is not agreeing with us with the divorce. Usually, the two people never divorce happily on both agreeing 100. If they both agree, then there is no real problem. One is always saying, no, I really don't want you to go, but the other one said, no, I had enough. So if this is the case between you and your ex, and you are the one who initiated, you definitely need to give the correct information from your end. That is not to say that your husband's perception is incorrect. That's his deluded. He has not feared of loss of you, but he has lost you. So he's now afraid that he may lose children on top of that. Therefore, his reaction is poorly supported by his selfishness, I would say. And your reaction is also poorly supported by your selfishness. So whoever is selfish, they suffer more, not because the other one is, than because we are equally selfish. So this will be the really correct bitter pill of what a thought may be. So it's really good to put yourself in his shoes and the children into yourself also in children's shoes, to try to do a few role plays and see if you were him, how would you do it? If he was you, how would he do it? And try to do that role and try to let go your husband, not because there's obviously no love, but now have no resentment. or not believing he's misinforming, poisoning your kids. But he's pouring his suffering. He's needy. He feels alienated. He's probably lonely. And so therefore there's every danger of he resorting to more than that kind of misinforming your kids. It can lead him to depression, and that parent depression would spill over to your kids and vice versa. So it's very important. You are today sending this question is very thoughtful. We are with you. And there are a number of people, I'm sure, in the audience and those listening and watching will also relate to the suffering of parting. But in the Buddhist teachings, parting is inevitable if you had a meeting. Question is how whether the parting will be. Parting usually isn't like the meeting. Meeting is happy and joyful and can't, but parting is almost abrupt and it comes like unannounced. So it's like birth has a death, and meeting has a parting, and getting has a losing, and acquiring has a losing, aging and death. So there is a death of the relationship between you and your husband has obviously consummated because of the divorce. So therefore, all conditioned things are impermanent, subject to change. And of course, there are many mothers like you who are feeling this parental alienation because of whatever the ex is doing to the kids and so on. And so we just have to accept, karmically speaking, if the children's custody is arranged in a way that you might have the just equally same amount of time as he's getting, but it's really important to have that time is not poisoned by telling them, arguing them as you agree that their father is wrong. The father is right because he feels that my decision to ask the divorce has made him to feel that we have made him to feel as though he is responsible for me initiating the divorce. Maybe he disagrees with that, and therefore you disagree with. Because of the two disagreeing adults, never will be able to tell the full story to the kids who will understand both. You've got to be fairly understanding someone who's really understand both and not take sides. You wouldn't believe, even with the kids, if there are two or more kids, one will agree with you, two will agree with other, vice versa. And there's never an ability to have a shared informed story. So that shows how much dynamically, karmically different it is for the kids their own side. So therefore, having family and children and husband and wife is full of suffering. Not having them is not necessarily sweet. Then when you don't have them, you really wish, you're so lonely, you wish you had somebody in your life. You deliberately go and find somebody. And then it goes quite well for a couple of months or years, and after that it hit the rock. Parting is inevitable. And no parting, including losing your tooth, If it hurts more in the mouth than it does then take out even your tooth. and at least teeth you have 32, but with the husband you only got one, so maybe that's the problem. But you need to redefine yourself, and don't believe that children are misinformed by your ex exactly as you are, because he's probably pouring his suffering and almost like want to receive sympathy from his children more that he think he couldn't get from you. So this is what human beings do, selfishly, and that is not going to go very well, because he is not grown up emotionally, poor man. If he's misinforming your children, of course, you need to really correctly tell the children that that's his story. It might be accurate. It might be accurate. That's his perception. That's his perception. But to say, if you say that he has reason to feel and think like that, even though that is not quite accurate, your reading point of view, because you're the one who is not him, and he's not the one that is you. So because there is a divorce, there is a divorce of agreement. Divorce of agreement. There's no agreement. So how would the children will agree one and agree both? They can't do that. So they can't. So it's very important to look into your children's eyes and tell that this is your poor dad. He is suffering because we are going through divorce. And I initiated. If that's the case, you should tell them, look, I initiated. I never knew that he would react that way to misinform you. Now he has. So you need to take responsibility that you have initiated this divorce. If it is, if it's not, then you might have a number of reasons why you're divorcing. You don't even go over that, because that will just confuse the children. So you have to say, you initiated it, and you can see that if I was in his position, doesn't want to let go of me, I probably will say the same thing. If you do that, your children will not feel that you're arguing with them. You're actually agreeing with them as far as why their father is telling, because he doesn't want to lose you. On top of that, he doesn't want to lose kids. And when a person is really afraid, he will do all sorts of things irrationally and doesn't know what is going to be appearance and reading of other people. And that's what he is. He's probably more of a object of compassion, pity, if not understood by your children. And it looks like you are having to fear that you appear to be arguing with the kids, because your story obvious, but you need to agree to them. That might be accurate reading of your husband. So you're not arguing with them. But I initiated the divorce, or whatever the reason that instigated the divorce. Kids may not know that. And so when you tell that, you're not arguing with them, but you are able to tell them the facts before them and why it's not amicable together, and one is not agreeable, other one wanted to divorce. If that's the case, it's your reason, your role to clarify and not having to argue with the kids. You really need to choose a place where you do the talking to the kids. It has to be a really good place and time, that not rushing through, have a really good chat, so that you are not speaking irrationally or hurriedly or emotionally, very kind, very gently. As you are a mother, you are obviously thoughtful enough not to wanting to be seen as arguing with them. That already shows how much you care about the kids and their relationship with the father. That's very important for you as much as important for them to them. If you think like that, you will find ability to accept your decision and its consequences. And this is one of them. And it'll change you to become strong and wise and not having to argue with anyone, let alone with your children. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Rinpoche. I was just wondering if there's anyone here today that has a question that would you like to? Okay, Anthony, would you be able to pass that over? Thank you. Sorry. So from Nicole, what are the broad roles of vivid colour and ornate sacred objects in Tibetan holy tradition and places? That's the first question.
Yes. Well, our senses are always looking for something to stimulate our five sense organs. So the rich color of the yellow and maroon and red we call Dharma color. Dharma color. And so Usually we only follow what we can see. Seeing is believing, they call it. So visualizing something, description of what you're seeing is often said to be golden or solar or lunar or radiance of this color, radiance that. Always try to take you out of your mind if you can imagine. So it's very much suggestive of the power of creative visualizations. And not only that, it also says that how many of our good and bad situations are our own imaginations. And so if you don't like some of your situations, don't imagine them, don't believe in them, don't see them in your eyes, don't hear them in your ears, let alone think in your minds. But whenever you do think of something or believe in something, you will start seeing them. We're always seeing what we're thinking. Did someone post a question, long one on the Zoom? Because I can see huge.
Zoom? Yes, I can.
Can you read that out?
Read it? Yes.
So that's that.
Compassion is the cause of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The driving force of compassion is the vulnerability of beings who do not yet see reality as it is, and thus live according to that wrong view, in fear and attachment, craving for safety. The teachings help us realise the correct view progressively and start leaving behind the problem. However, there are those who are too vulnerable and weak, believing they are isolated, feeling lonely, and therefore do not have enough agency or strength to study. How do the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas reach those who are not ready to study Dharma, but who need it so much? They are perhaps the highest driving force for compassion. How do we help them acquire joy, hope, agency without talking spirituality? How our behaviour help them? Also, does Tonglen and prayer quietly help them too if we are not that skilled in meditation yet?
To suffering and its causes. We too are bodhisattvas, but taking the first steps of intentionally training to be one. Your question very much instigates that we are longing to have those qualities and not to be, having to religiously convert people or use religious terms to help sentient beings. But you exactly opposite. You deliberately adapt to whatever language, culture, or situation that person you are trying to reach your range to. Your range of people are scientists or math teacher or whatever it is. You need to be able to look in their eyes and relate to them as they are, and then understand their situations, and not to see oneself as a what do you call, Messiah or healer of their suffering, but saying their sufferings are but cause of their own compassion, cause of their own self-healing. If understood. Suffering is not understood, it is despised, denied, rejected, and angry, so the very thing exacerbates and perpetuates the suffering. Suffering is caused by destructive emotions when one is not aware there are. But when one is aware that there are, one knows how to pause for a cause and then not do those afflictions, not do those thoughts. But most sentient beings don't have the ability to cognize the cause of their sufferings, including the root cause of the suffering. They can actually point finger at some secondary cause of sufferings, the actions of others. They do not realize that that person doing those actions is unaware of those very actions that they are creating, because they are deluded by very subtle afflictions, and because of that, they're not aware what they're doing is causing them. And this should give us even more compassion because they don't know. They didn't know what they were saying or doing. They thought it was going to solve the problem, or bodhisattvas know that sentient beings do not know. Therefore, bodhisattvas have even greater compassion for not their wrong actions, but not knowing they were doing wrong actions. So bodhisattvas have compassion all the time. Not just when somebody is complaining or suffering now, putting the hands up or something. Bodhisattvas have all the time ability to know how inapt sentient beings are, unconscious they are from their own thoughts causing the suffering. They are not aware of their own thought. They are not good at choosing the thoughts, let alone the actions and words. They are cognitively obscured. Basically, they're blind. So when you see all these blind people, whatever they're doing seems to be going closer to the very precipices they wanted to avoid. So therefore, bodhisattvas always see sentient beings as one's old, frail, blind mother. And then never go into correcting or telling them wrong or whatever. They see how you can quickly go and protect, save that blind old mother falling off the cliff, because she seemed to be getting closer and closer to the precipices. Now, precipices is the actions. They're not even every step is making them getting closer to the precipice, but then they actually do not know they are. So the bodhisattvas have this amazing remote compassion. They don't need immediacy to see the actions that are wrong, or violence, or whatever. Even the person seems to be quite very well mannered outwardly, but he's still grasping to his way of doing. It's the only way. It's good, and others are wrong. All this kind of grasping to the selfishness is the blindness. Is the real blindness. So bodhisattvas have this ability, have the range to see the remote root cause of suffering, that sentient beings are inept. So we need to learn to meditate, to develop such precision, such penetration, to be able to see that. Until we have that, of course, we have reason to be suppressed by our own suffering. But joy that you're talking about, the bodhisattvas are not always expressing the joy to others. Quite a lot of bodhisattvas have profoundly distressed and depressed. And bodhicitta is excellent anxiety. If you can call it excellent anxiety. It's always worried and suffering of others' plight. And because others' suffering is never decreasing, so there is never a time they can switch off the mind. Because to do so would be very unbodhisattvic. So bodhisattvas are usually quite gloomy-faced bodhisattvas. When some people ask me, why are Tibetan lamas look so happy and smiling, laughing all the time when all the sentient beings are suffering? That's probably true, but probably true. From relative level, that's true. How can you behave like that when all your mother's sentient beings, blind, old, frail, are falling like that? That's why quite a lot of practitioners are very depressed. And rightly so. It's good to be depressed with the right motivation. Bodhisattva is accurately depressed for the right reasons. We might as well be depressed for good reasons. Because people who care have a lot of anxieties. People who don't. They don't care about future life. They don't care about future consequences. They just don't believe anything. So all mothers have a lot of depression. As soon as they're starting to fall pregnant, they get prenatal depression. As soon as they give birth, they have postnatal depression. Why? They're always worried about baby's health and so on, and education and so on. Even they're growing old, become independent, they're still always worried about them. Not because she's selfish, but she can't think of anyone but her only child's well-being. There's a lot of parents that are depressed because they never could see the good happening to the hardship. They put so much to their children's well-being, and they're not quite turning out to be the way they like, even though they're perfectly fine. But they really want to be possessive and controlling and able to predict their future and try to make them all as you like. But they never turn out the way you like. So they can't accept things as they are. So there are two kinds of internally the bodhisattvas are very joyful. They feel it's a laughing stock. Sentient beings have to make such a big fuss over this little. There's nothing worth doing that. So the bodhisattvas have joy in their own meditative state. But outwardly, if they are outreaching to sentient beings to help them, they need to have empathy, to understand the sentient beings, and ability to tailor the kind of advice and counsel you give to the need, to the whatever is appropriate to the particular range. You can't give a universal kind of a theme or remedy that everybody expects to know how to apply remedy to adapt to themselves. So we need to therefore stay very committed not to forget this kind of bodhisattvic intention and trainings, and we have to show our own resilience, our own patience, our own humility before asking them to be humble, before telling them to be patient, and all sorts of things. So when you don't want to use any religious kind of terminology, yet want to influence others, that's usually best is through how we can be the person that they have in front of them. If we seem to be very impatient, we seem to be very, very judgmental, reactive, irrational, and even if you teach Dharma, they say, no, he's only talking, but he himself doesn't do these things. So we need to be patient, we need to be generous and tolerant and forgiving. Maybe that's probably the best example they need to see, people who, even we can't say you should be patient unless you are actually patient. You're actually showing patience in a number of situations that others would have reacted very poorly. And then they will see that not so much a religious doctrine you are trying to propagate, but you actually are quite patient, and you are actually quite generous. You're quite forgiving. If they see these, of course, these are universal human value. It doesn't need to necessarily appealing to people, particular Judeo, Christian, or any religious persuasion, or lack thereof.
One more question on Zoom. What are the signs that indicate that someone is making progress in their meditation?
The sign of progress in meditation is you are much more able to sit long. Even your physical body has aches and pains, but you still are much more tolerant, and you're much more calm, and you see less flaws of others. You see more of yours, but delightfully you are overcoming them with your meditation. Your mind, when spent in meditation, is learning to clarify lots of your flaws, corrects them in the meditation, and make notes how to do them in everyday life. So that your meditation is boosting your clarity, your compassion to others, your stability in your reliance, self-reliance. They say, how is the meditation helping you become much more reliant with your meditation than things? Or particular quick solutions of this, going there, doing that, but instead going inside you and have you go and practice, how true the Dharma is, how sane it is. It's even better when you put it into action. When you do, it clarifies lots of the kind of mist in the air. Dust on the ground all settles. So you need to bear witness to your own change of perceptions of your past or opinions. You no longer are subscribing to some of your argumentative or judgmental opinions that you previously used to hold about that or about this. You no longer agree with them. You have dropped them, and you're far more happier without those opinions and perceptions. That is the sign that your meditation is obviously helping you, because you feel so freed from those views that you never knew was wrong. Not only you recognize what is wrong, but you have learned to discard them. And not only you've previously aspired some qualities, now you know what they are, and you actually are relishing some of them. Forgiveness, tolerance, letting go, compassion, and that you are changing. You're able to change, which is really, really sign of meditation. You're not thinking like yesterday about that issue. You're replacing hate with lack of hate with compassion. You're replacing discontentment with contentment. This is sign of meditation. Your devotion or faith in the teachings of the Buddha and admiration or in the teachings is you couldn't believe that such a wisdom teaching existed and was there and came through the Buddha lineage. And you're fortunate to have this karmic attraction to be able to agree and feel really at ease by having these teachings showing you that others can't show you, that you are able to change things that you previously thought was doing of others. Now you can make fundamental changes from your own meditation, that you have realization of wisdom through meditation is far superior than the realization of through reading and listening. While reading and listening are important, but if you translate them application into your life, then those you thought sounds good, you actually do it until you taste the sweetness of changing that. Like forgiving someone. In the meditation, it will come. The choice is three: this way, or that other way, or this middle way. So when you allow a few choices, then you can see the extremes of the other two views: reaction, or retaliation, or not doing anything, versus doing compassionate thing. So if you react poorly, it will going to exacerbate the problem. If you ignore the thing, the problem will continue to stay. So then the choice, this third, is obvious. You need to accept some present difficulties, tolerant, and not react, not add any fuel to the fire. If you can't extinguish it, don't add fuel to it. Previously, reacting to reaction was like adding fuel to the fire. Not doing anything about it is letting the fire still burn. But learning to defuel, remove some of the twigs and wood from the fire, not add anything from your own end, is usually the compassion, tolerance, forgiveness, and impermanence. Impermanence means you have to change your ways. Often people are never changing their ways, They're always looking what is right and wrong, but they have only one deluded reaction. They call self-defense. They always want to defend themselves. and every group they go self-defense, but they wouldn't hesitate to offend other. So, if you have to do something harmful to the other, it will harm you double very soon. You need to forecast that and therefore not do anything, but swallow the hardships that you temporarily must face.
Okay, I think we had one more question from here. How might meditation practice be influenced by dreams and vice versa, the role of imagination?
Yeah, dreams are day thoughts that goes into night thoughts. Dreams influenced by the sleep. Practically speaking, near cause of dream is sleep, but far cause of the distant cause of the dreams is the unresolved day thoughts. Either too much favorable day thoughts, or too much negative thoughts, too much stress. Some are very mean nothing. So dreams are influenced by past events, which you have either not resolved them or letting go, or some fear or hope or attachment that you had with past things happen, but you still are not overcoming them with. That can cause dreams that are 100 times or more exaggerated. They say, like, in the evening when you are sort of about to sort of turn off the day, so to speak, you heard a noise at the door and you thought, who is that? And you really feel scared. And you really thought someone was after, but when you checked the door, there was nobody there. And then you closed the door and you went to bed thinking that you were really thinking that you're not safe, someone is coming attack me. You could dream that in the night being shot at by other people. So dreams could be exaggerated form of what you emotionally felt even as recently as a couple of hours ago, or days, weeks, months, years ago. Some recurring dreams happen all the time. So dreams in Buddhism is indicator that even real things in life are dreams. So dream never have to come true. If there's anything the dream has to teach, don't treat even life events too seriously, because they too will change when you wake up. So night dreams, we get over it when we wake up from sleep. So we're glad that it was a dream, or disappointed that it was a dream. I don't know which of these two you have more. But for real meditator practitioners, whatever in life's experiences they are, like the story of husband and wife being divorced, it's a dream. Now definitely it was a sleep. You really have now woken up that fantastic divorce, that fantastic marriage is no more. It is just a dream. You have woken up from the sleep, and you're disappointed that it hasn't stayed real. But they don't, because they are conditioned by how ideal that relationship should be. But when it doesn't, then it just bursts like a bubble. So dream is an indicator that all things are transient and hollow, and even the pleasant things that are really going very well at the present moment, one shouldn't get attached to them, that these two will not last. Okay, thank you everyone for bringing these wonderful questions. They are mainly related to meditation and everyday life situations. So I'm sure we can all draw some strength from this, not just from the answers, but the questions. There's a good questions when you ask, usually have all the answers there, but you just wouldn't know which is correct version. correct version. So when you're asking those questions, you already have this answer, that answer, maybe 3 choices. You weren't quite sure which is which, particularly with situations of everyday life challenges. So anyone's opinion or answers are no real answers, but they are just merely pointers. And it's important not to look at the finger, but the way it's pointed to. So it's really good to make it relevant to your present situations, and then try to apply, try to interpret as a useful way that you may not have considered doing. Because if you seek advice, you don't need to seek advice for the things you're doing but not going and producing any good result. So you obviously have to find a pointing that gives you challengingly new way, but you haven't tried, but you have legitimate reason to try that because it makes sense, your mind and heart agrees, yeah. Then however inconvenient they may be for your temporary kind of person's kind of liking, you have to face these challenges and learn to use the problem as the cause of resolving the problem by understanding the problem, not despising the problem. Problems aren't problems in themselves. Problem doesn't exist in the problem. Problem only exists to the people who is attached to it or aversive to it, or ignorant about it. And either of these 3 or combination of these 3 is always the cause of the problem. We call it greed, hatred, and ignorance. These 3 poisons, cardinal afflictions, manufacturers. And we're not aware when we're doing them. You have to be very cognizant this as not as thing, but your thought. Is your thought is doing them, not the thing is doing them. If you can distinguish the thought from the thing, then it's important that the thing doesn't get confused as itself, but thing is a reflection of your thought. When you know the thing is not itself, thing is only a reflection of your thought about the thing, then you can change the thought about the thing, person, whatever the case might be. And that actually sort of gives amnesty to the thing. Because we confuse with the thing, with our thought about it. Meditators may have this benefit of having this experience. Oh, it's my thought about it. It's not the thing. When we don't meditate, we don't think like that. We think it's the thing. We can't see the thought. Our thought has any role to manifest, make it manifest the thing like that. So what is pointing is not so much to anything, but to the very thought that we usually do not see. That is our own thought, that it is making things appear that way. Whether the object looks pleasant or exactly opposite. Are they a projection of attachment to it or aversion to it? Or ignorance about it? And being able to see this and to put your wipers on and clean the windscreen of your mind will enable you to have a greater clarity thing that might be completely empty of what you were thinking in the object. This enables us to not to be so reactive to the object so much. An object is just an opinion of the observer. Now let's us become aware of the observer, aware of the awareness. This makes you become very present. And this doesn't need to be only happening when you're sitting, meditating. This could be happening anywhere. So, thank you everyone for your attention and participation and coming here and Zooming and listening and watching this. Thank you very much. We're going to conclude here with the dedication merits. Hereda Mahayana Jiji whatever mereda havagro mehobe begas delavas Jehoda Mahayana Jiji courage manjuje nyawade azama tabadadelawa follow it avade zambo ajade degode mere mede selambo dijeda tebe edena yedanza where has been bomeding freely without generation. Thank you.
We hope everyone's hungry because there's lots of food out there.